Welcome back to part 2 of the wonderful April Banbury on our podcast for Seed, Survive and Thrive, where we're talking everything about lived experience, eating disorders, and continuing the conversation that needs to happen. April, part 1, you were telling me very, very kindly sharing about what the journey was like for you and how the eating disorder started. And obviously we never really know how it starts until we've been through it and it's hindsight, but you explained it so eloquently. And we ended on the note of that you had said you felt completely recovered, which for me is so amazing because there is, I mean, agree or disagree, obviously, but in my opinion, there's this thing about eating disorders that so many say, well, you'll never fully recover. It'll be with you for life. And I disagree because some people can genuinely live their life completely away from an eating disorder, but also just because the eating disorder is still potentially part of your makeup and thinking, that doesn't mean that you're not recovered.
Yeah, exactly.
So like when you said about looking after yourself and making sure that you're eating properly and making sure that you're, making the right choices for you, that's still you being responsible and owning it and going, I'm recovered, but I'm aware.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important for people to hear and understand, because some people say to me like, oh yeah, but I'm still doing this and I'm still doing that. And I'm like, no, you're doing these things to make sure you stay well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think there's no boundary or shame in that. No. Just moving on sort of to, like you say, about 16, 17, you had that moment where you was like, I want to do all of these things, and if I don't, I'm going to lose my life. And then you went on to do amazing things. Like, what was that transition like from like 16, 17 to where you are now? Because the reason I ask is because for me, when you've kind of been institutionalized for that long, it's really like, it's really a wake-up call when you go, oh my God, I've got to be an adult and like do stuff.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you? What were like the first steps? Like, walk me through it.
I mean, obviously for me, it was college played a huge role in it. Like I said, like just being accepted. And then after college for a few years, I went to university where I literally had to stand on my own 2 feet. And yes, it's terrifying. It's terrifying for anyone. Yeah. But for me, such a good feeling. I think it was an even stronger and more emotional feeling because it's somewhere that I didn't ever expect myself to be. And I just was so grateful that I was there, present in the moment, you know, recovering and doing so well with it. And the better I did, you know, the more I wanted and the more goals I would set myself. And I became hungry for success and for more constantly. And that's what, you know, I channeled my drive into, you know, leaving the eating disorder behind, you know, losing control of that and putting my control into my life, you know, and living well and healthy and having, you know, a potential career.
Yeah. And what would you say to your younger self now if you could?
I would have been like, eat the damn burger, girl.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Eat the damn burger, girl. But yes, like,
yeah,
for all the pain, and you and I know it's not, you know, food is the symptom, it's not the cause. We get that.
Yeah,
but like,
it's worth it. It's just not worth it. There is so, like, life is so precious. We only get one shot at it. You know, live it and enjoy it to the max. You know, put your control, channel that control, because that's what it is. It's a control thing. You know, take it away from food and put it into striving for more in life and living it, you know, in the present moment.
That's amazing. Like, that's such a good way of explaining it, because we don't ever look at taking that negative into a positive, do we? Because we're kind of programmed to think that that element of control and high, like, because many people who suffer with eating disorders are like the high achievers, aren't they? And they, you know, and they are strict. I mean, come on, let's be honest, it takes a lot to go through an eating disorder, you know.
100%. Yeah,
it takes like control and discipline, but it's a discipline that is a form of punishment, where, as if, like you say, so brilliant you said that. If you can channel that into a discipline of life, of going, I want this and I'm going to go out and get it, that is what is worth it in every sense. And what do you think, you know, you're very much in this space like I am, in terms of trying to change the perspective of the way eating disorders are not just treated but are viewed. Like, what's your key messages, and what brought you to work with Seed Lancashire and Breathe?
I mean, obviously I went to Seed Lancashire and Breathe because they are, you know, smaller charities, and they need someone, I guess, with a higher voice, it's, like I said before, going to be heard, because it's been such a taboo subject. I think people, the media, you know, they need to allow us to speak out about it, and make it that taboo subject that everyone was too afraid to speak about or tiptoe around. So if the more we're allowed to talk about it and raise awareness, you know, the better things will become for, you know, the younger generations, you know.
It's not, and like somebody said, oh, you know, but you don't want to be normalizing eating disorders because eating disorders are bad. And I was like, no,
that's what? no you do. No,
exactly, because like it or not, it's happening.
It's happening. You can't sweep it under the carpet. Whether you speak about it, you don't, like, whether you don't speak about it, it's going to happen. And going to suffer and lose their lives more so than if we start speaking out about it and getting the help to the people that need it.
And I tell you what, April, one thing that I found is that the power of words and conversation are just as, if not more, effective than some of the treatments in the UK at the moment for eating disorder sufferers, and support for carers. Because I'm not pointing fingers, but we know it's a postcode lottery. Like, some people will live in an area where the eating disorder support is absolutely amazing. They will understand that it's about the mind. They will understand it's a mental health illness, not just about putting weight on somebody. But then there are other places where the treatment is just horrendous. So if we can keep even just this podcast, just having the conversation, I guarantee you there will be parents out there or loved ones, and there will be kids out there who will be able to sit down and watch this together, and it will start a conversation. And that's one of the biggest feedbacks that we've got, and I've got. You know, sometimes I do the videos and it's scary because I'm like literally talking about the things that I spent 13 years trying to hide. But actually what happens is you get messages from parents and kids going, I watched this with my mum last night. And we had a conversation. So thank you for being brave and you know, for coming and doing this with us, because it will make a difference. It will so make a difference. Well, so what's in terms of Seed Lancashire and Breathe, like, I know at our Seed, our sort of ethos is we treat the person, not the eating disorder, and we try and bridge the gap where services are lacking. Like, what would you say is sort of Seed Lancashire's stance on it? Like, what's their little thing, if it makes sense?
Quite a similar thing, you know. It's sort of silence, breaking the taboo. We're not going to talk about it, we're going to brush it under the carpet. You know, I do a lot of, you know, online videos in lockdown. You know, I did Zoom calls with parents as well, teenagers who were suffering, teenagers who hadn't spoken about it properly to their parents, yet they were happy to speak to me, a complete stranger, just to break, like you said, to break that silence. And it's the first thing, something's wrong, and, you know, wanting to seek help. You know, it's about also making sure that people are aware that the support is out there, you know, no matter, you know, whether, you know, whether it's a monetary thing or not. You know, there's support privately, and there's support that's funded, you know, by through the charities. So there's always a way of having that support, but it's making sure people are aware of that, because people know that. So it's just about, you know, spreading that, as, you know, campaigning and pushing it as hard and as often, as much as possible.
It's amazing. And you touched on about the carers and loved ones, and how they often sort of get forgotten in all of this, because like they're a massive part of it, sadly,
Yeah.
because anybody who's got an eating disorder, you know, it's like a path of just destruction. And it's not that person's fault, because that person is called Joe or Helen and loves certain things and is a loving son, or is a loving husband, or is a loving wife. The eating disorder, I often say to people, is separate. So do not battle with the person. Do you know what I mean? Like, make sure you remember the person, all of it. But is there any, like you said, you speak to, you know, parents, like what's the key message that you give to them when they feel like they can't say the right thing, they feel like they're walking on eggshells? You know, is there any sort of like nugget of wisdom that you can sort of share from your lived experience?
I mean, the only thing that I would say is, you know, obviously, you know, you have to support your child in this, and not see them as, because a lot of the time people might think it's attention seeking, or, you know, it's not an actual thing, and they can get angry with the child because they, you know, oh, just, you know, see it as, you know, a silly game, like, just don't be silly, eat this, you know, you'll be fine. You know, it's about, I would, you know, recommend the parents just, you know, do a little bit of research, just get online, have a little Google, and actually just have a little bit of an understanding about it. Because once you understand the eating disorder, that you then can understand, you know, what your child's going through and the best way of supporting them.
Yeah.
You know, that happens, the sooner you can help them into a journey of recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. When mum and dad set up Seed, you know, it was a game changer for us. And I'm not saying that every parent in the UK can set up charities, because you and I know it's pretty hard work. But it was that point when they started educating themselves about eating disorders that they started to understand me and what I was going through. And the approach was completely different.
Yeah.
You know, once they started to get it, like, I always say, an eating disorder is not a choice. I didn't choose to sabotage myself or my family, you know. And I think that's a big misconception that needs to be addressed. I mean, what are your hopes for the future when it comes to eating disorders? It might seem a bit of a no-brainer question answer, but, you know, what are your hopes moving forward for the treatment or awareness? Like, what would you say is the thing that you go, if one day this could happen, I would just be ecstatic. I would feel proud.
I mean, obviously the statistics lowering, because you know, that's, you know, ridiculously high, probably now more than ever because of the lockdown. But if it was normalized, you know, eating disorders, you can be any size. They're not just, you know, related to a thin person, but, you know, people who, you know, might be considered as overweight can also have an eating disorder, can also have anorexia. And I think about normalizing that. The sooner we normalize it and, you know, accept it, then the sooner we can, you know, help more people. And it will become less of a thing. That would be like the dream, for it to just to be, you know,
it's a thing that happens.
The thing that, yeah, exactly.
A bit like, you know, like depression and anxiety. These are the things that happen, but sadly, an eating disorder has the highest mortality rate of any of the mental health illness. Therefore, we need to make sure that people do know it happens, so that we can.
Even people don't even know that, you know, and that's again something that I was, you know, helping to spread awareness on. You don't realize that eating disorder does have the highest mortality rate within mental health illnesses. And why do people not know that? Because people don't want to speak about that. But that push out there, and the quicker and the sooner we do it, you know, the sooner we can get those numbers down.
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely need to have a conversation about Seed, our Seed Hall. You know, helping Seed Lancashire and Breathe. I think, you know, if we can collectively come together and you know, power in numbers and the power in partnerships as well. So big shout out to our friends Seed Lancashire and Breathe, and I leave that to you to arrange, April, because I think anybody who has the heart and drive to set up an eating disorder charity has the heart and drive to make a change.
Exactly.
You don't do it. You don't do it for any other reason. You know, so
you know,
So big love to them. But is there anything that our seedlings can look out that you're up to? Anything that you're excited about as we come out of lockdown? Like what's going on for April?
So next plans in place, hopefully, I mean, very early stages at the moment. We're looking into going into schools and doing, you know, a few little talks about how to look out for the signs and symptoms of eating disorder, because as we know, it stems from, you know, early ages. So the moment we put that in place, and we know, you know, because someone may have a friend and think, you know, oh, she's acting a bit strange, this, that, and the other, but not is. As soon as you know, you can, you know, report it to, you know, to an adult, teacher, friend, charity, and start getting the help that's needed set in place early. So I think that we're really looking forward to doing in the future, for sure.
Well, we have a seed eating disorder educational toolkit already, so maybe that's the first conversation.
I think so, yeah, because I saw this the other day.
Yes, that would be amazing. Let's sort, and anybody watching, the eating disorder educational toolkit is exactly the purpose of what April's just said about you know, what Breathe and Seed Lancashire are trying to do, because early intervention in schools is so key and education is so important. You know, I've just come off the back of the Seed road trip where we were going around schools in the country and watching the toolkit be delivered, and it was just, it works, and it was inspiring to hear those kids 10 years old actually talking to me about what an eating disorder is, but as though it was normal, and like they were excited. And yes, they were excited to be able to support someone and not have them suffer alone. And I just thought, wow, I mean, that is amazing. You know, so anybody who wants to inquire about that, you know where we are, but I can't wait to talk to yourselves about it more as well. But what about you? What's going on for you? Have you got anything coming up, or is it just sticking with the philanthropy? Or
pretty much, and just, you know, working hard.
And brides.
And lots of brides.
Maybe one day you'll do me, April. Maybe one day.
I will. Happen. We're gonna get there. It's gonna be fine.
Oh my God, we can dream. But you know what's so nice? Like, I don't know about you, but I feel okay. I think there's a big misconception, like at my age, 37, that being single, it's like, oh, and I'm like,
no.
Yes,
I'm so over that. I'm like, go out single until you're 40, 50, then you just do that. You know, it's your life. Nobody can tell you. As long as you're happy and healthy, that is all that matters. It will come along when it's meant to.
Can't think of a better way to end the podcast. Thank you, darling. You're amazing. Everybody go and check out April on the tags that we put in the video and get following her, because she's doing incredible work. She's an all-round sweetheart and a very, very talented lady to boot, and inspiring, really inspiring for a lot of people. So thank you for your time, April.
As always, thank you so much for having me.
All right, darling. I will see you in person. Right, we're going to get offline and arrange. Bye.